Good morning, 8th graders. Welcome back. We're still in section 4.6 talking about slope-intercept form. And if I didn't emphasize it in the last video, I do want to emphasize it right now. This particular section in particular, and in fact, this whole chapter is very crucial. These are very important topics for the state test. So it is so important that by the time we leave this chapter, we are feeling super confident in the things that we learned. All right, so let's get into our lesson today. Remember, in our last video, we graphed using slope and y-intercept. So I showed you how to write the slope two different ways. We did a couple of examples. So let's flip to that next page where it starts at the top, slope-intercept form of a linear equation. And yes, we and I need you to memorize this form. This is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Guys, you can't get any more basic algebra than this. This is just one of those formulas. When you leave Algebra 1, you should know it like the back of your hand. So memorize it, memorize it, memorize it. Y equals mx plus b. Well, there's two things you do need to know. The slope is m. Now, why they chose m as the variable, oh, I have no idea. I never researched it, never thought to ask that, but it's a great question. I do not know why. And the y-intercept in that formula is the b. So right here, the m is your slope, b is your y-intercept. This is a great form to graph straight out of, and I hope to demonstrate that to you, if not in this example, then in other ones. Okay, let's do a quick review. So we've already learned one form of a linear equation, and that was standard form. If you think you remember standard form of a linear equation, write it here on this line and out to the side, write the word bonus so I remember to give you bonus points for remembering. So write it there if you think you remember it. Okay, and maybe later on in the video or in the next video, I'll address that again. All right, so let's talk about example 2. We're going to write linear equations in slope-intercept form. I'm a little backwards. I needed room for the graph, so I put C to the left. I'm actually not going to do this one first. We'll save this one until a little bit later. Let's start right here with A. And they want us to write the equation that describes each line, and they want us to write it in slope-intercept form. So part of our task, guys, is we've got to read the directions and actually follow them and put it in the form that they're asking us to do. So I need you reading critically. I need you to read carefully and read critically and circle the things that stand out to you. So it's not just write any equation. We want to write the equation in slope-intercept form, okay? As many times as you can write slope-intercept form, do that until you've got it memorized. So here's slope-intercept form. Whoops, my pen went crazy. Sorry about that. mx plus b, y equals mx plus b. And they give us in A some information. They told us that slope, which remember is m in our equation, is equal to 1/3, the fraction 1/3, and the y-intercept, b, is 6. So really, it's as simple as plugging in those values where they belong. And so 1/3 is slope, so I'm going to plug that in for the m, and 6 is the y-intercept. I'm going to plug that in for b, and there, my friends, is the equation. So yes, it is as simple as that. But the key is we have to know what slope-intercept form is to begin with, or else we're not going to know how to plug it in. So please take care, do what I asked you at the beginning of the video, and memorize that particular equation. I also need standard form memorized as well. So two things I want you to keep memorized and just keep going over it until it's very much ingrained. All right, let's go down to letter B. This time, our slope is 0. Okay, stop for a second. I said slope is 0. All right, another bonus opportunity. We're going to go back in the recesses of our minds. Not too far back, I hope. We just took a test on this. And what kind of line has a slope that's equal to 0? So what kind of line has a slope equal to 0. Okay? Now, hopefully, you already know that because you've memorized that. If you haven't memorized it, go ahead and start working on that as well. I think some of these things we want to memorize so we can easily recall them and not waste time trying to figure things out. I think that's definitely a worthy cause. So write that bonus down, and if I see that on your paper, I'll definitely put you an extra bonus point on your bonus log, okay? So, all right, let's get back to letter B. We have a slope of 0 and a y-intercept that's equal to -5. Well, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to remember what slope-intercept form is. So write it again. Just keep writing it until it's totally memorized, okay? Y equals mx plus b. And we're going to plug in what we know. And we know that the slope is 0. We know that the y-intercept is -5. And so we're going to plug in those particular things. Now notice I'm going to underline 0x. What is 0 times x, or for that matter, what's 0 times anything? And if you're thinking 0, you're exactly right. And then what's 0 plus -5? And that's correct. So you can actually just not even write 0x because it totally cancels out. And you're going to end up with y equaling -5. Now on the outside, that's going to appear to just be a point. It is not a point, believe it or not. This is a straight line, but it's a special kind of line. It's very, very special. And I'll try to remember after I'm done with all 4 of our mini examples and this example 2, A, B, C, and D. I'll try and remember to come back and address those special lines and what they look like. So if I forget, talk to me about it in class tomorrow so I can address that 100% for you. Okay, so we've accomplished what we need to accomplish. We wrote the equation of the line, and because we have a slope of 0, that slope canceled out, zeroed out, and left us with just the y-intercept. And so that's actually a special line, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Okay, let's move on to C. C is very interesting because this time they gave us a graph, and from the graph we want to glean information so that we can write an equation in slope-intercept form. So practice writing slope-intercept form. There it is. Very good. And then let's find the things that we do know. We know that we have this point, and what's special about that point that I just drew an arrow to? What's special about that point right there? If you said that it is the y-intercept, you are exactly right. So yes, b equals +1. We could see that right away. Now think for a second, from a graph, remember I told you if I was ever given a graph and I knew 2 points on the graph and those 2 points were on a grid intersection, what would be the easiest way to find slope? If you're thinking rise over run, you are exactly right. Great job. That's exactly what we should do. So let's start with our y-intercept, +1 on the y. And let's use rise over run to find our slope. So we're going to go up 2, right 1. Up 2 is +2, right 1 is +1, and our slope is 2. Great job. That's exactly how you do it. Could you have started at the top point and worked your way down to the y-intercept? Of course you can. All that means, let me show you what that looks like. You would go down to left 1. Down to left 1 is -2 over -1, and it still equals +2. Great job, guys. It doesn't matter if you work bottom to top or top to bottom, you should get the same exact slope. Now let me ask you a question. Do we have enough information to plug into the slope-intercept form now? Yes, we do. We know the slope, we know the y-intercept, and there's the equation of that line. That red line that's right there, that's the equation of it. Great job. Let's flip the page and let's do one more example. This time, we're given that slope is 4, and of course you can write that as 4 over 1 or negative 4 over negative 1, okay? If we were graphing or not, I just wanted to remind you of that. And then we know slope, so we know the m. But they didn't give us the y-intercept. They just gave us a point that happens to be on our line. Well, what's the first number in that point, the 2? What does that represent? What is that in the coordinate? If you said that's the x, you're exactly correct. And how about the 5? What do you think about that? Yep, that's the y. So if I use my equation, okay, y equals mx plus b, let me mark the things I know. I know m, and I know x, and I know the y. What do I not know? I don't know the b. But I could use those 3 things to help me find that missing y-intercept. Because in order to write in slope-intercept form, I have to know slope and I have to know the y-intercept. I only know one of those right now, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of extra math to find the other so I can finally write the equation. All right, so let's plug in what we know. Y is 5. There it goes. M is 4. X is 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify right here. We need to go ahead and make 4 times 2, 8. And then to get b by itself, what do you do to the 8? Correct. You're going to subtract it from each side. And you're going to get b is negative 3. Now do I have enough information to plug in the slope-intercept form? Well, let's think about it. Do I know the slope? Yep. Do I know the y-intercept now? Yep. I can now plug in. And so y equals 4x plus negative 3. Or you can actually write it this way as well. Here's an alternative way. You could do 4x minus 3. Either one of those is perfectly correct. So use that. Use that. All right, now I'm going to go back for just a second and I want to talk to you about, let me get an extra sheet of paper here. It's not in your note packet, and I'm going to have to take a second and get some graph paper going. I need graph paper. I want to talk you through some things. Let's go to math, graphs, templates, and that's my favorite kind. I'll just throw that on there. Okay, here's some graph paper. Now remember, in the other example, we ended up with a slope of 0 and a y-intercept of negative 5. And then we said we could actually simplify that cancels out, and we're going to end up with the equation negative 5. That is a special kind of line, okay? And I want to talk to you about that, and it's a good time to talk about that. Y equals negative 5. If I did an XY table, okay, and I'm going to leave my 0x in there because I need to be able to plug something in for the x so I can find the y, okay? So let's just do our typical points, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and I just want to show you something. I want to see if you can detect a pattern, okay? So let's plug in negative 2. What's 0 times negative 2? 0. 0 plus negative 5 is negative 5. What's negative 1 times 0? 0. 0 plus negative 5, negative 5. Well, 0 times 0 is 0. 0 plus negative 5 is negative 5. Are you detecting a pattern here? Do you see that no matter what I plug in for x, y is just going to always be negative 5? So let me graph those for you. So let's go back to negative 2, and then we'll go down to negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's negative 1, and then negative 5. 0, negative 5. 1, negative 5. 2, negative 5. What kind of line is this? Yeah, it's a horizontal line. This is a special line. Notice that the slope is 0. When the slope is 0, that means automatically we have a horizontal line going through -5 on the y. So that's a way you could look at it. If you can't remember that, you could do a little chart where you plug in for x, and then you'll see very quickly, no matter what I plug in for x, y is always -5. So that's a great way to look at that equation there. No matter what I plug in for x, y is going to be -5, and it's horizontal. It will always be horizontal. So if there's no x term, the line is horizontal. Okay? The line is horizontal. Another way that I've taught it in the past, I told them, I said, do you see an x term in y equals -5? And the kids would say, no, we don't see x at all, because remember, it canceled out. And I would say, what kind of lines never cross the x-axis? Remember, this is our x-axis right here. Here's the x-axis. What kind of lines won't crisscross ever with the x-axis? And they all said horizontal. And I go, yeah, it's always going to be a horizontal line. You don't see an x, it's not going to cross the x, it's horizontal. So that's another way you could process this. It's okay if that didn't make sense, if something else earlier in my discussion made better sense, then definitely focus on that. Let me pull up another blank sheet of paper, and I'm going to throw some more graph paper over here, because I also want to talk about another kind of line. And you may have a situation where they give you that the slope is undefined. Now, right away, if you are given that information, slope is undefined, you already know what this line looks like. What kind of lines have an undefined slope or no slope at all? There's no number known that we can use to identify the slope. If you said a vertical line, you're exactly right. Now, vertical lines, remember, they are parallel to the y-axis. So there is no y-intercept in a vertical line. So you're not ever going to see a b given for a vertical line. So what you will see is possibly an equation like this, like x equals 1. Do you see that there's no y term? That just means that this is a vertical line. It's going to cross through the x at +1, but it's never going to cross the y. Now you can do a table with this. Let me see if I can formula this thing. I was trying to remember how I did this with another student the other day. You could do x plus 0, y equals 1. And then what we're going to do is actually the reverse. Now here is x equals 1, and I put in a ghost man right here. I don't know if you've ever played kickball before and you didn't have enough players to kick and you made it to second base and you go ghost man on second and you go back to kick. This is a ghost man. It's a placeholder, and we're showing that there's a y term there, but it's not really there. That's the 0 times y. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in for y, and we're going to see what we get for x each time. Okay? So I'm going to do my favorite ones, except I'm going to do it on the y side. And what's -2 times 0? Yep, 0. 0 plus x is x, and x equals 1. And I'm hoping that you see a pattern, that no matter what I plug in for the y, -1 times 0 is 0. 0 plus x is x, x equals 1. That I'm just going to get 1s no matter what I plug in for y. Okay, so remember on the page prior, no matter what I plugged in for the x, y always was -5 in this particular example. That's what we're saying. In this, sorry, I went the wrong way. In this example, what I'm trying to tell you is no matter what y is, x will always be 1. So let's see what kind of line this ends up being. What I'm interested in is it going to actually be a vertical line like I was hoping, and I told you it was. So let's graph it. Let's do 1, -2, 1, -1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. Hey, it definitely looks vertical to me. And so, yeah, you're not going to see that y-intercept. You are going to have an undefined slope, and no matter what x is, or x is given to you as 1, you can plug in any y you want, and you will always get 1, and that makes it a vertical line, okay? So there's a couple ways you can handle what I just taught you. You can just memorize that if I'm ever given an equation like this, y equals -5, you can just memorize that that's a horizontal line. No matter what I plug in for x, y is -5. Or if you get something like this, you can memorize that's a vertical line. X is always the given number. It doesn't matter what I plug in for y. So it's up to you how you want to handle that. If you have any further questions about this or you need to see it again in class tomorrow, let me know.